Aye.
There's a new sheriff in town.
Things are gonna change around here?
It's drastic. Happy birthday to Mr. Vanslo.
Thanks for noticing.
Welcome to the
Not
Human
everyone
Services
does.
meeting. I needed a motion for, last month's committee meeting. Motion made by Supervisor Frazier, second by Supervisor Sieber. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You opposed?
Could I be Supervisor Wood today instead of Supervisor
Yeah, I
Frazier?
was gonna say.
Yeah, that would,
I know things were gonna change.
I was ahead.
Paperwork.
I'm one of those guys that always looks ahead, so I was gonna say, I'm filling in for Ms. Frazier, but
Okay,
thank you,
very
Ms.
good.
Wood, for the clarification. Okay.
You're Mrs. Frazier.
Now, if you had a pen with your name on it.
Very true.
Christie, go ahead, please.
All right, as you guys may have noticed, there's a little bit of a change to my agenda. I had sent out the agenda with 2 resolution requests. In speaking to the county attorney's office, they thought, it would be more expedient to put it on one request, because what it actually is an appropriation. It's basically a cost of living adjustment. I used to just get them as allocations in my programs, and this year, the state decided to make it, a standalone appropriation specifically for direct care workers. So I'm not really applying for anything, I'm just being allowed to take the appropriation. But as part of the appropriation, I do need the chairman of the board to sign an attestation saying that the funds will be used solely for the purposes of salary and fringe benefits for direct care workers. So that's kind of all rolled into the new resolution that I gave you. It's a miscellaneous form number 20. And so that's doing both. Basically what I said is to receive permission for the chairman of the board to sign a certification as a part of the application to receive the appropriation for the direct care workers program funding.
Okay. And this was okay with Martin, you said?
Yeah, I worked with Terry McGar and she had run it
Okay,
by
yep.
Martin.
Okay. Motion to get this on the floor, made by Supervisor Wood, second by Supervisor Dr. Vanslo. Any discussion, are we all good? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay.
And that's really all I had. And I apologize for only having the one thing, but this had to be in by July, and I wouldn't have been able to wait for the next meeting, so sorry about that.
Very good, very good. Thank
All right.
you, Christie, appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good weekend.
I had business anyway, so they were.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
Solo today, no Sharon?
No, Sharon.
Okay.
She's busy getting ready for orientation on Monday and Tuesday. I was gonna wait till later, but I'll say it now. We have 68 kids signed up for the summer program. Last year we had 61. And of course the telltale sign is to see how many show up for orientation Monday and Tuesday, and then of course how many show up to work sites after that. But we always have a few that drop out.
Yep.
Yeah, we're real excited. We'll have a busy summer.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Okay. You're on deck, Chris.
Okay. So the main item I have is the first agenda item, which is our resolution request to create a new fund. We've been talking for months about the new Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act, and we had a meeting with the Treasurer's Office a few weeks ago to talk about how that would be done. The state actually issues charts of accounts that the communities have to follow, and they've assigned this as Fund 41. All of the other numbers will remain the same as they were under the Workforce Investment Act. The Workforce Investment Act was Fund 40. So all we did was add a number 1, and we changed the name a little bit to protect the innocent, I guess. Usually this comes to you the last month, but because of the new legislation, we didn't have our allocation ready until now. It is down a little bit from last year. Last year we had 750,000 and change, and this year it's 701,110.
Okay.
And you see the allocation attached. Any questions? Our budget process is very different than all of the other departments because we run on a program year budget, which starts July 1. We are then this is what all the Fund 40s, you're allowed to carry money forward from one year to the next. So we never start at 0. like all the other county departments do. We're always rolling money over, twice a year actually, in January, because we're right in the middle of a program year. And then, from our annual allocation, we're allowed to carry over as much as 20%. And we usually do carry over a balance, and we actually won't start spending the newest money until probably August or September. So there's always a cushion of a couple of months, so that if the allocations are late or Congress doesn't act like a few years ago we had that issue, we still have money to fund our operations.
Okay, need a motion? Made by Supervisor Wood, second by Supervisor Brock. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The second one's a lot more straightforward, and you see these all the time, which is a request to amend the county budget to add Trade Adjustment Act funding. The most interesting comment about that is the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act funding is program year 2015. The Trade Act funding that was just approved is from program year 13, which has already ended. But what the feds do is they recapture money, they make it available, and this was for a dislocated worker that's eligible for the Trade Adjustment Act to attend education.
Okay. Motion made by Supervisor Wood, seconded by Supervisor Vanslo. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And then the last item is on page 5, which is a discussion item. I thought that I would have a resolution request today to appoint the new Workforce Development Board, but instead what I have for you is a chart, because we haven't yet settled on the makeup of the board and the size of the board. And so what you see is, if you go across the top, there is a minimum requirement in the law for the size of the Workforce Development Board. The second column is the makeup of the current Workforce Investment Act Board, which is a total of 38 members. And the highlighted column is what you see is what's been suggested in terms of the size of the board. And there's been a lot of discussion. We've had some problems on occasion of getting a quorum at the 3 county board meetings. So there's been a lot of discussion about making the board a little smaller. Basically, the people that are going to be removed are the 3 directors, like myself. I'm actually a member of the Workforce Investment Board, and I was always kind of surprised, because it'd kind of be like Paul being on the Board of Supervisors. You're an administrative role, but then you're also being put into a policy role. So we kind of said right away, well, the directors don't need to be on the board, so that took off 3 seats. And then some of the other seats you kind of see from this chart here. There is a requirement that a minimum of 51% be from businesses, and so what's been suggested is that there be 17. And there's always been we try to allocate the seats within each county based on calculations of population and other factors to try to balance out the size of the board. And so you see the suggestion is that Warren County would have 5 businesses. We're then required to have union representation and community development organizations. And that's currently served by the CAP agency, Lynn Akershak, Community Action. And we also have the union representation from Local 773. And then higher education would be SUNY Adirondack. We're going to maintain all 3 economic development groups as proposed. And then there's been a suggestion that we add someone from Hudson Valley Community College, because they have the Smart Tech facility in Saratoga County. But I brought this up as a discussion item for your information. If there's questions, comments, concerns, we want to do this properly, do it once, and make sure everyone's on board and on the same page.
So how close are you to compiling your list?
Supervisor Vanslo, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier.
Well, the approach that we took is we went to the current board members and said, you know, we're restructuring, are you interested in remaining? And, out of our 5 business reps, they all said they wanted to stay on. We did have one, business rep who actually hasn't really attended the last year or so, Mike Irish from Fort William Henry, who said, you know, I just can't do it anymore. And, I think I'd mentioned at the last meeting, we are looking to get someone from the hospitality industry, to replace him on the board, because he was sort of the, representation from the hospitality industry. And there's been a couple of names suggested, but I don't know who that might be at this time.
Any other questions?
And we did have one opening, that was typically filled by the hospital. The person, left the hospital about a year ago, and we hadn't replaced it, because we were waiting to see what would happen with the new legislation. But other than that, we've always been, Warren County's been very stable in our representation on the development board. The other counties on occasion have had 2 or 3 vacancies at a time.
Good. All right.
Well, you know, anytime anyone has any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. You know, if there's a suggestion you might have for a rep, always open.
Good. Great. Anything else for Chris or for the Human Services Committee?
The only other thing, I keep it on the agenda, is the office space. Nothing new to report. Supposedly the lease is being worked on now, and now they're saying, by the end of the year, would be ready, as opposed to, June. So, that's all I have.
Our finest.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing else for Chris, motion to adjourn. Made by Supervisor Wood, second by Supervisor Seaver. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.